want to start this season by naming something I see often in leaders, and it's usually well before anything is visibly wrong. It tends to appear when someone is doing well. They're competent, responsible, and they're carrying a lot without dropping standards. Now, from the outside, leadership still looks intact. But internally, though, there's a subtle tightening that's hard to articulate, so it gets dismissed. And most leaders assume that it's circumstantial. So they point to complexity increasing, or expectations rising, or the pace accelerating, or people needing more access, or even more certainty. And that story is reasonable. It is. But in sort of day-to-day language, it usually sounds like this is just the season, or this is what leadership at this level looks like. And because the logic holds, they adapt rather than question it. And they hold it more internally. So it becomes more measured. And they start to regulate themselves quietly so that things keep moving. Now, when it's like this, nothing looks wrong, which is why this phase can last a really long time without it being addressed. But what accumulates underneath isn't workload, it's the internal load. And it's where decisions never fully settle. It's where tension gets contained rather than resolved. It's where emotional compression feels allowed, but it continues uninterrupted. And over time, the nervous system adjusts to holding that state. Leadership absolutely still functions and results may even still come, but it's increasingly powered by pressure rather than steadiness. And that internal state doesn't stay private. So it shows up in the tone in conversations, in how much space others are feeling like they're permitted to take. It's in whether decisions feel clean or heavy, in how often a leader steps in, even when they don't intend to. Now, teams don't just respond to strategy, they respond to the internal conditions the strategy is delivered from. And it's gradual, and cultures adapt to that. They eventually become more cautious and definitely more reactive and more dependent without anyone really consciously deciding to lead that way. It's not something people do on purpose, and it's not failure in leadership either. It's what happens when internal conditions go unattended for too long. When those conditions stabilize, leadership changes in subtle and significant ways. Decisions take less effort to land and communication becomes simpler. My favorite part is authority feels quieter and it's more grounded. It's less ego-driven and forceful. And there's less bracing in the system overall, which is what people pick up on immediately. That's what I mean by recalibration. So I want to leave you with a question to sit with. If nothing in your external role changed for the next 6 months, what would you need to stabilize internally for your leadership to feel easier? You don't need to answer it right now, but just notice where it lands. Where does it sit in the body when it lands? If this resonates, it's likely because you're already aware of the internal conditions shaping how you lead. I'd like to remind you that there's nothing here to fix, but you may not need to carry it all on your own. Everything in this season builds from this starting point. See you soon.